Good afternoon, beloveds, and happy Wisdom Wednesday. I wanted to come in this week and continue with my series on preventative medicine for the soul. This week I wrote about silence, patience, and grace, and how important it is for us to take some time with ourselves in total silence. Last week I talked about slowing down a little bit. This week I'm talking about silence. And I have lots of good quotes this week because, of course, when I put something out in its intention, all of the wisdom teachers, both embodied and on the other side, seem to show up with their beautiful wisdom and their quotes. And so I'm going to start with a blessing from those of you who follow me know I'm a big, huge fan of John O'Donohue. And this is from To Bless the Space Between Us. On presence. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of all falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. And so that kind of sums it up, at least for me, the reasons for spending some time in silence and the importance of listening to yourself, regardless of what's going on up in there. You know, whether it's I have the squirrels and the monkeys and the elephants of memory and all of these things. And I think, that there's a couple of passages here, but the one I want to really reflect on is take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. And I feel like again, it's ironic because here I am on social media, but I like to drop in, give you little bites and hope that you go off. And as I do, and I've really gotten more and more intentional about the time I spend letting external media come into my field. And so those quiet moments, we receive so much information coming at us that it becomes difficult to discern and listen and hear what our own voices are saying. And the only way to remedy that is through silence. And it's not an easy practice for me. I speak. I came out of the womb talking. And yet, as the older I get, the more silence I crave. And whether that's age-related or not, or it is because of technology and so much information coming at me, I'm not sure. I just know that I need at least 10 minutes of silence, preferably 10 in the morning, and then a much longer practice in the evening that also incorporates some sound healing. So sound, but not in informational sound, but to tap me in deeper and then go completely silent and shut that off, because what we're doing is we're training ourselves to listen to our inner ears instead of our outer ears. And interestingly, part of the practice is to let your outer ears hear whatever it's hearing, as far out as it can hear, and then coming closer and closer and closer to all that you hear is the sound of your own breath. And if your hands are on you at the same time, you can almost hear, and I know some people actually can hear their own hearts beat. And I find this more and more to become just such a seminal practice. Part of it may be because one of my strong intuitive channels, it's both knowing and auditory for me. So if I'm constantly being bombarded, and I'm very sensitive to repetitive noise and just a lot of noise. It may be why I only had one child. It probably is one reason, spiritually speaking, or my soul knew I can't handle a lot of noise. And yeah, I love music. I love sound. That's actually what brings me in deeper into myself. but it is again, a discernment of what sound, what voice, what noise is coming into my field. And so I encourage you this week to spend a little bit of time in silence. And I know and the point is not to clear out your mind of all thoughts. And I think that's a big reason why people go into resistance around certain meditation practices that encourage that. Because it's very difficult to do, and that comes with much practice. And then even sometimes, I mean, every wise sage in my writing this week, I quote something from Saint Teresa of Avila, and I'll link to the longer writing. But that can be a futile practice, and then not for everyone, of course, but then we give up. We give up on the internal practice because we think for some reason meditation needs to be clearing out the mind. I do more contemplation, so I often will go in with an inquiry. But in my silence practice, it really is about silence. And at the same time, whatever's going through here, I'm just being a compassionate self-witness to whatever is going on in my mind, whether it's, monkey mind, squirrel stuff, memories, rehashing old situations. I go through it with a very curious lens and with some humility and certainly a lot of fun. Like one thing about going into silent practice is to really, really try not to take yourself so seriously and be very curious about where your mind goes and just say, that's interesting. And if you can journal after a little bit, that's great. But this is just a witnessing practice. It is not a trying to fix, trying to change, but just an awareness practice of where your thoughts go. And then over time, you begin to hone in your thoughts and concentrate them on inquiry, on just focusing on the breath and all those things. But this is just an encouragement to have some fun. And as I was, sitting with quotes and things that I wanted to speak to today, I was reminded of an old stand-up of Ellen DeGeneres's, which is hilarious. It's all about the thoughts that run through her mind as she's trying to fall asleep. And I'll share the link here. It's old, from like 2010. And it's so funny. But one thing she said, and she talks about inner child a lot in this video too. So it's got dual purpose, silence and sort of that joke around, let's not take ourselves so seriously, and coupled with allowing our inner child out to play. So it's a really wonderful video, and I'll share it. But what she said is, when you go you're trying to go to sleep or you're trying to be silent, that's when you find out how boring you actually are. And I think that's hilarious, because to me, one of my shadows, it's like, oh, the horror. I don't ever want to be seen as boring. And that's something I've been working with a lot this year. And I want to, a lot of us go into the shadow of wanting to be so unique. And until we find something really unique, we won't put our work out into the world. And a lot of inner stories. And a lot of that's what I think about when I go into my silence practice. So I just thought that was hilarious. So, I'll reshare her video just so you can get some laughs today, because it's really funny. Many of you've probably seen it. But that's my encouragement for this week is, if you've tried other meditation practices that involve clearing out your mind of all thoughts, let me know if that works for you, or, if it doesn't, and if as a result, you kind of wrote off the idea of meditation in general. And then an encouragement to spend 10 minutes in the morning, even if it's while you're taking a shower, although I don't encourage you doing other things at the same time. But if that's all you got, that's all you got. But 10 minutes, just silence, nothing else. Check in with what the actual ambient sounds are around you, or if the dog barks, ultimately you learn to use those external sounds, not as so jarring, but as a way to take yourself even deeper into what's happening inside your heart flame, because that's the intention here, is to witness, how the mind is processing. Meanwhile, the heart flame is still lit up. And your soul desires some of that silence. And so it's just an acknowledgement of your soul and of your soul work. And to get into, people ask me all the time, especially those that have strong auditory intuitive channels and they know it, that they ask me, well, how do I discern, what's mine, what's not? And the truth is, really, the seminal practice to discerning what is in your heart and what is in your soul is to cut yourself off periodically from external noise, whether that's in the form of reading or scrolling the news feed, or all the things that you usually go into resistance or do when you're in resistance to hearing what's going on inside of yourself, even if it's completely boring, when you're running through the to-do list. Or, of course, the other fear may be of going into silence and rerunning old traumas, and if that is the case, or old anxieties, please do reach out to me for support. So, if I can support you, I will. And if not, I can refer you to someone who works in the trauma therapy realms if that's what's needed. But, if you're not with those thoughts, they're still, if that stuff is running through you and running you, it's still there running you in your energy field. And so it's okay to come into awareness with it, be gentle, be compassionate, ask for any support that you need. And that's actually going to be one of my next prescriptions. I don't know if it's this coming week or actually it'll probably be the week after. But that's really simple, but not so simple. We resist it all the time, or we fill our days with stuff, or we are surrounded by a lot of noise making. And sometimes that can't be helped. If we have a lot of littles running around, or, our home is crowded right now, if we still are, sheltering at home in different parts of the world. But I wanted to, I have a couple of quotes from a spiritual teacher, a Sufi spiritual teacher, Jamal Rahman. And he says, silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the absence of the little self. Silence is the language of God. Everything else is a poor translation. And so I leave you to sit with that. And I would love to hear, if you do a silence practice, if you choose to do it based on my inspiration, how it works for you. Try it for a week. See how it goes. Try it for 40 days would be even better. And like I said, and I talk more deeply about it in the writing, but my mornings are more difficult for me to get into lengthy spiritual practices because my mind is already thinking about what my day will bring. And so, but I do commit to 10 minutes and some other non-negotiables, but 10 minutes of silence. And then at night, I take a longer amount of time because I'm the type of person, for me, energetically, like when I'm done for the day, I'm done. I'm not on social media after, or electronics at all, as much as possible after 8, preferably 7. I wind down. I spend time with family. I read. I have a whole night. My nighttime practice is longer. Often, if I do a 90-minute long yoga practice, it will be in the evening and not in the morning. And I'm not one to go to bed ruminating over the to-do lists. As a matter of fact, what I often do during my practice is say, sweetheart, thank you. You did enough. I love you. And then I'm able to go into the rest of my practices. So I'm not one to ruminate over the next day's to-do list. It'll be there. I don't need to go into the dream state that way. In fact, I get a lot of wisdom in my dream states if I go into it very quietly. And as a result, I sleep very, very well. And I know many of you do not. So if you also need any assistance in some before bedtime wind down to get better sleep and herbs, other things like that, I'm also happy to support you in those realms. I have a lot of experience and background in many, many different techniques to help with sleep. Because it's crucial. Got to sleep, got to rest. Like that's non-negotiable number one. And then silence assists that in the nighttime practice. So generally I've been finding some really lovely binaural beats, like 732 hertz or 528 hertz music on Calm app, and there's tons of apps out there, Insight Timer. So I'll do about 10, maybe 15 minutes of that, and then shut it off and go into complete silence for another 10 to 15, in addition to my gratitude prayer, reading, other things that I do in the evening. So do try. If you can do both parts of the day, that would be great, but at least that 10 minutes in the morning, so you know where your energy is, you know what joy you want to receive out of the day, you know where your soul is going before you get any external influences other than from your 2 and 4-legged beloveds, because sometimes, they're just around in the morning, and that's how it is. Um, and that's okay too. I find a way to tune them out. I can do that now, but that's taken years of practice. And with an older child, everybody knows that, well, heck, he doesn't even wake up till long after I'm done with my practices these days. So when they're littler, it's a little bit more challenging. I understand that for sure. So I leave you for this week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.